And welcome to the Just in Time podcast. I'm your host, Justin Shoot, and we've got a good one planned for y'all today. We've got college football week 4 recaps, and we got NFL week 3 recaps for y'all as well. This is going to be episode 15 today. We're moving along pretty great. College season and NFL season is coming along pretty well. But as always, another special shout out to my editor who has been killing it on these videos. Shout out to my little sister, Mary Shoot. She's been putting in a lot of hard work, especially on the editing end on these videos. And without her, none of these videos and podcasts would look that good. So shout out to you, little sis, and keep up the hard work. I really appreciate it. All love. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right on into college football week 4 recaps. And this was a crazy week of college football, it seemed like. And we're going to start off the video talking about Ohio State defeating Notre Dame 17-14 at Notre Dame. The anticipation for this game was crazy. Number 6 Ohio State and number 9 Notre Dame. Notre Dame had received impressive nods from everyone as they come out the season on fire. Notre Dame had the better quarterback talent and arguably the better offensive line. They're led by Sam Hartman and notable, offensive linemen, including Joe Alt, who is looked at as a top offensive line prospect for this upcoming draft. Despite having the better quarterback talent and the better offensive line, Ohio State was resilient and they ended up winning the football game on the last play of scrimmage. And I think that's a great example of the toughness that the Buckeyes showed on Saturday night. And, who better than to show that than arguably your best player on the team and, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. And if y'all don't know Marvin Harrison Jr., he is the number 1 ranked wide receiver in the 2024 NFL draft class. He's the best wide receiver in the country at the collegiate level. He is 6'4", 205 pounds, and he displays just everything you'd want from a receiver. Great route runner, great hands, great speed, shows effort as a blocker. And he got hurt in the game and sprained his ankle. Despite the injury, he stayed in the game and helped Ohio State late in the game, drawing attention from defensive backs. And he showed great blocking even on later in the game. He was taking attention away from other receivers and, led to them winning that game late, with the crucial block. And TreVeyon Henderson, the running back for Ohio State, scored the game-winning touchdown. And shout out to TreVeyon Henderson. He's a great running back, and he got injured, pretty early on. He had a great freshman year, but, he's starting to, show some promise now. Again, he's starting to show that burst that he had earlier before that injury. So that's good on him. And this game was just tough. It was tough all the way through, and Ohio State was resilient. They proved to themselves and to everybody that they continue to win these big games. Ohio State was favored by 3, and they ended up winning by 3. So, the spreads and sports books were pretty right on that one. Notre Dame just lost to a great team today, or on Saturday, sorry. They lost to a great team on Saturday, and they still got the rest of the season to go. I mean, they've only got 1 loss, and that's okay. But, Notre Dame plays some notable opponents on their schedule. They've got number 17 Duke this week, and they've been red hot out the gates with quarterback Riley Leonard. Riley's been very impressive leading the way for the Blue Devils, and he's looked at as a 2024 NFL draft prospect as a quarterback, and teams will be looking to see how he does versus that Notre Dame team. Notre Dame also has USC in a couple weeks and Clemson later in the season, so some tough games still left on their schedule, and they can't let this Ohio State loss get to them, and they're gonna have way more football ahead of them, as the time goes on. So, like Ted Lasso said, be a goldfish. So, Notre State fans, Notre Dame, everything. Be a goldfish. Moving on to another crazy game that was super competitive. It's number 4, Florida State. They went on to defeat Clemson 31-24 in overtime. And what a game this was. Clemson came out the gates on fire. They were rolling. They took FSU to lock in, and they came back and forced overtime. They ended up winning the game in overtime, and it was an impressive win after an underwhelming last week performance as they escaped with a close victory to Boston College. Florida State's now 4-0 on the year, and they're looking very strong in the ACC. Clemson, however, falls to 2-2, and now they are 0-2 in conference play. They've got to slow down the points off turnovers and, more importantly, lock in because they play more impressive teams, on their schedule. I just mentioned that they got USC in a couple weeks towards the later part of the season. Clemson's also matched up with Notre Dame, I think. Or no, Clemson. I am butchering that, y'all. I'm sorry. Clemson does play Notre Dame, though. They don't. I'm not sure if they play USC or not, but Clemson for sure plays Notre Dame, so they're gonna have to be on the lookout for that. They got this week's tough opponent with Duke, so yeah. And before we get into the next college football game that happened, I want to give a quick shout out to Clutterbug organizing by Jamie because I feel like it. That's why. Do you have clutter that's piling up in your home, an office stressing you out, or a closet that you've been meaning to clean out for years but never have the time? Well, Clutterbug Organizing by Jamie provides professional decluttering and organization services that will transform your stressful areas into pleasing and functional spaces that bring you peace of mind. You can check out their Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or their website linked below. And you can book a consultation through the Google form. You can get your first hour free by putting Just in Time Podcast in response to the referral questions or anywhere on the form that you fill out on the website. Moving on to a game that if I did a episode last week covering previews, I would have definitely had some thoughts on giving some more clarity as to this whole situation because the media was kind of high on some Colorado upsets this week. But Oregon defeated Colorado 42-6. Oregon won this football game pretty commandingly, and as they should, because they were favored by 21 coming into the game, and they won by over that margin. So this Oregon team handled business. Overall, this Oregon team was just way more talented. And if I did a game breakdown on this, like I was saying, I would have pointed out the talent differential between the two teams. Most notably on the lines of scrimmages, as that's where I believe Colorado lost the game. Offensively and defensively on the line, Oregon just looked way more talented and way bigger and better than Colorado. And that poor Colorado offensive line, they were getting tore up. Shedeur Sanders was getting pressured all game. And without Travis Hunter, Colorado lost to a great Oregon team. And now they're 0-1 conference play and overall 3-1 on the season. So I don't think this is, any space for, if you're a Colorado fan where you start to freak out because Oregon's a pretty good football team. They're 4-0 now, and they look strong. And, they were supposed to win this football game. They got better talent everywhere. And Colorado, you had one off season to put together a brand new roster, and y'all did the best y'all could with what y'all got. And unfortunately, when y'all play the top echelon of teams like Oregon, that's got years of recruitment and recruits there. This is just these sort of games kind of happen, and the loss of Travis Hunter did hurt them, but they got beat by a good team by the end of the day. So they're going to have to shake this loss off as they face number 8 USC at home this Saturday, and that's going to be a good one. Heisman winner Caleb Williams versus Heisman hopeful Shedeur Sanders. And Travis Hunter isn't expected to play this week, so we'll see how Colorado shapes up versus USC. I think they'll look a little bit better this week compared to, Oregon where they got blown out. They just flat out dominated the football game. Bo Nix was on point. Troy Franklin showed his talent as a great 2024 NFL draft wide receiver prospect. There's still a lot of football left to be played, and the Pac-12 remains probably the most competitive conference of football this season. And it's kind of funny because this is their last season as a conference in the NCAA, but they're going out strong. So shout out to the Pac-12, last season, best season. So let's move on to Texas A&M as they defeated the Auburn Tigers 27-10. Starting quarterback for the Aggies, Connor Weigman, got hurt in this game, and I believe it was his ribs, and I'm not sure when he'll be back. So luckily, quarterback Max Johnson came in. The lefty shined at quarterback. He went 7 for 11, 123 passing yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, and one of those was received by his younger brother, Jake Johnson. Their talent just took care of business today, and I really want to highlight that moment of Max Johnson coming into the game, the lefty quarterback. He was a transfer from LSU, and he played backup for Connor Weigman this season and last year a bit as well. I think they're fighting for that spot, but Max Johnson's a pretty solid quarterback, and coming in for Connor Weigman, you're just hoping that he takes care of business, finishes the football game, they win the football game. Ultimately, they did, but something cool that happened was Max Johnson's younger brother, tight end Jake Johnson, plays for the Aggies, and Max Johnson came right into the game and immediately started targeting Jake, and ultimately they threw him a touchdown pass. So it was just cool seeing brother to brother make a play on the football field, and that was pretty cool for the Aggies. They put one in the win column though, 27-10, and I believe they're now 3-1 on the year. Only loss being to Miami, so we'll see how Texas A&M looks, further and further down the line as the year goes on. Utah shuts down UCLA 14-7. And if I had previews for this game, I would have personally said I would have probably taken the UCLA Bruins to win this game because I'm pretty high on quarterback, true freshman Dante Moore. 5-star, very good, and he starts for the UCLA Bruins. And I thought he would have had a great game versus Utah, but they took care of business and they proved me wrong. It was a hard-fought game. But Utah came out on top. UCLA had 2 turnovers while Utah had 1. And ultimately, when you lose that turnover battle, you're probably going to lose the game as well. Utah is now 4-0 on the year, and UCLA is 3-1. And moving on to Washington State defeating Oregon State 38-35. Washington State moves on to 4-0, 1-0 in conference play, while Oregon State moves on to 3-1 and 0-1 in the Pac-12. That conference remains to be competitive and deep in talent this year. Most notably from this game, I want to highlight Cameron Ward. Cameron Ward is the quarterback for Washington State, and Cameron Ward is just pretty good as a football player. He's making a lot of noise. He's got the I don't know. Washington State, Wildcats, I think. I feel like such a fake sports fan for not knowing the mascot for Washington State. But Cameron Ward having a great season so far. He's got them at 4-0 right now, 1-0 in conference play. That's something to highlight for them. And I want to give a quick shout out to 4K the Barber and High Jump Party Rentals. Shout out to High Jump Party Rentals and 4K the Barber. High quality party bounces and party packages available along with an up and coming barber service. You can reach out to either or at 210-799-6930. Chris and Erica will take care if y'all need a haircut or you need a party bounce. They're your people. You can hit up Chris Need for a haircut or a party bounce. They will take care of y'all with A+ hospitality. So shout out to 4K the Barber and High Jump Party Rentals again. They're based out of the San Antonio, Texas area if y'all need them. And talking about Texas specifically, we're going to move on to my Longhorns as Texas showed all gas and no brakes against Baylor on Saturday. They defeated the Bears at McLean Stadium 38-6. Number 3 Texas went to Baylor and they dominated. This was an impressive victory by the Longhorns. On both sides of the football, they did a great job. Quinn Ewers continues to shine as and he had another great game leading the Horns on the offensive end with 18 for 23 passing the football, 293 passing yards, and a touchdown through the air, and also a touchdown on the ground. Kind of gave me some Colt McCoy vibes with the game. Jonathan Brooks had an impressive game, 18 carries for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 40-yard run where he broke out, and I think it was reported he ran 22 miles per hour on that run. So Jonathan Brooks showed some impressive speed on that run. CJ Baxter even got in on some of the fun rushing the football with 6 carries for 21 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Receiving-wise, Xavier Worthy was the lone touchdown recipient for the Longhorns with 3 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. Xavier Worthy continues to prove why he is a first-round wide receiver talent in this upcoming draft. I'm very high on Xavier Worthy, and I don't think there's, a lot, if any, weaknesses at all to his game. But most notably, we got to talk about star tight end Jatavion Sanders this game. Dude had 5 catches for 110 yards. He showed, he truly looked like a 5-star this game. And that's another draft prospect where I think he's going to go high in rounds 1 or 2 in the NFL draft. The Longhorns are so good at football this year, basically. They got talent everywhere. And Sark definitely has, recruited so well since he's gotten to Texas. So shout out to the Longhorns and Coach Sark for that. Also, shout out to freshman Jonte Cook. He had an impressive 51-yard reception. A.D. Mitchell had 3 catches for 46 yards. And defensively speaking, we got to give credit to Byron Murphy for 2 of them sacks. And shout out to Jet Bush, Justice Finkley, and Vernon Broughton for also getting sacks on the game as well. And shout out to linebacker Jalen Ford, continuing to prove why he's a star linebacker. had an interception for the Longhorns, and that was huge for the game. Overall, Longhorns just took care of business. They dominated Baylor, and they move on to 4-0 on the year and 1-0 in the Big 12. Baylor is now 1-3 on the year, and things aren't looking promising for them. They got UCF on Saturday. Meanwhile, for Texas, they're going to match up against Kansas this week, and they're led by the Big 12 preseason Offensive Player of the Year quarterback, Jalen Daniels. He's ultra talented, ultra confident, and that Kansas team is not bad by any stretch anymore, like they used to be a decade ago or, a decade or two ago. This team is respectable. They play good football, and Texas, however, remains undefeated. But they got an undefeated Kansas coming to play them, and so it's going to be a good one. I believe this is at Kansas. I'm not sure. Let me look at that right now because I'm going to favor Texas no matter what. But I think the venue of the game does make a difference, and it's going to be at Texas. So ESPN has this right now as 93.5% in favor of Texas. Curious to see what that spread is, honestly. It's Texas minus 17, so we're 2 touchdowns and a kickoff favorite and a field goal favorite. So, I'm pretty confident the Horns will take care of business, but I'm not counting out Kansas or Jalen Daniels. They beat us last year, so, just got to stay focused. They got Kansas this week, pretty good opponent, undefeated, and you got Oklahoma next week, who's also undefeated. And I'm very excited for that Red River shootout, so we'll keep my eyes peeled on that one. North Carolina defeats Pittsburgh 41-24. UNC is now 4-0 on the year, 1-0 in ACC, and Pitt is 1-3, 0-1 in the ACC as North Carolina continues to get better. Shout out to quarterback Drake May. He's continuing to shine as a quarterback from North Carolina, and Mac Brown, man, continuing to put together a pretty impressive team over there. They're now 4-0. I didn't expect that for North Carolina, so shout out to the Tar Heels for that. Number 7, Penn State. They defeated number 24, Iowa, 31-0. Talk about a dominant showing from Penn State. They were good. They were dominating. And, Iowa, they had very, very little offense and production. Penn State just, I'm going to say it again, they dominated. Quarterback Drew Allard looked very good, and the whole team is impressive. And they're still undefeated at 4-0. So we'll see how Penn State continues to look in this tough Big Ten. They got a couple of, the big 2 that, they're competing against is Michigan and Ohio State. But, there's some other sleeper teams in the Big Ten. So we'll just got to keep our eyes peeled on that one. As for Iowa, man, you're hoping that offense comes together. I know they have some starters out, but that's just sad to see. Meanwhile, Syracuse remains undefeated at 4-0. They match up against Clemson this week, at UNC next week, and at Florida State the following week. So Syracuse is going to have a tough stretch of games, but we'll see how they look at the end of the stretch. But they've got a good quality opponents on their schedule, and if they can shock one opponent, that'll be something to see for sure. And also, who remains undefeated, Missouri at 4-0. They defeated the 2022 Big 12 champs in Kansas State last week, 30-27. That was a pretty crazy game. They defeated Memphis on Saturday, 34-27. They've got Vanderbilt on Saturday and number 13 LSU the following week. And they've also got a tough stretch of games late in the season as they go to at number 1 Georgia versus number 21 Tennessee and versus number 22 Florida. All in back-to-back weeks. Regardless of that tough stretch, though, their impressive start to the season for the Tigers, and they've got a lot of talent in this roster, so I'm pretty hopeful to see how Missouri does. And, they also landed the number 1 recruit in the 2024 class, so shout out to the Missouri Tigers. They've been on a roll recently. And lastly, for college football, I believe this is the last bit of college football recap. Kentucky remains undefeated at 4-0. They've had a tough 3-game stretch coming at them. Starting on Saturday, they play number 22 Florida. Then next week it's at number 1 Georgia. Then it's hosting number 23 Missouri, who we just talked about. It's a tough stretch, but they got to stay focused, and we'll see how Devin Leary looks, towards the rest of the season. Last sponsor shout out, we're going to shout out Lovely Creations by Jen. She creates beautiful, one-of-a-kind wreaths and arrangements for all seasons. Unique designs using old lassos, antlers, antique containers, repurposed wood, and more. Owner and creator Jennifer McFall loves custom orders. You can let her bring your vision to life, or she can create a beautiful and unique gift for someone special. You can follow Lovely Creations by Jen on Facebook and Instagram to see all of her items and what's available to purchase. If you mention Just in Time, you can receive $10 off any purchase or custom order. Shipping and local delivery is available on all purchases. Just please welcome friends and family into your home with an inviting wreath or add a pretty arrangement to your dining table created by Lovely Creations by Jen. So, special shout out to the sponsor, Lovely Creations by Jen. She is based out of the Giddings, Page, Bastrop area, also the Austin-based area, but, if you wanted a personal delivery or something, we can maybe make that happen. But special shout out to the sponsor, Lovely Creations by Jen. Moving on to NFL Week 3 recaps. This was a pretty crazy Week 3 for the NFL. Definitely would not have imagined the Dallas Cowboys getting pretty embarrassed by the Arizona Cardinals, but that happened. The Dallas Doomsday defense did not look good against Arizona, man. Dallas lost to the Arizona Cardinals 28-16. Cardinals quarterback Joshua Dobbs went for 17 for 21 passing the football, 189 passing yards, and a touchdown. Also had 6 carries for 55 rushing yards. Dobbs was good. He was effective, and so was the run game. James Conner had 14 carries for 98 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Rondale Moore, who is a wide receiver, lined up at running back today and showed some great promise as he's just a natural playmaker with the football. 3 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown rushing the football. Rookie wide receiver Michael Bolson had 2 receptions for 86 yards, and vet wide receiver Marquise Brown had 5 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. Kaiser White defensively was huge for them. He had a late game interception to seal the deal for Arizona against Dak Prescott. I mean, Cardinals were on a roll, and, I could have told you that they were capable of winning this football game. I'm a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, but, I'm also a realist, and it's pretty real that, the first 2 weeks of the season for Arizona, that they were competing in both of those games. They lost the first game of the season. The second game, they had the lead most of the game against the Giants, and the Giants, had this miracle comeback by Daniel Jones. Saquon got hurt, and they ended up winning the game. So, wasn't by any means that Cowboys were just going to come in and dominate, especially with Trayvon Diggs out, with the season-ending injury. That's a huge blow to the team, and also a lot of notable starters were not starting. Tyron Smith, star left tackle, did not start. I believe Zach Martin didn't play for us as well, so that was hard. Overall, the Cowboys offense was just having trouble scoring, and the defense, man. Usually, what we can depend on and count on, they just didn't. It looked like a lively team. They couldn't stop the run game. Certainly not the lively team that they looked like the first 2 games of the season. Maybe that season-ending injury of Trayvon Diggs was still fresh in their minds, or the fact that the important offensive line starters weren't able to play. But the point is that this was a competitive Cardinals team, despite what their talent or what the record shows you. They were in both games of the first 2 games of the season. The Cowboys did not play with a lot of success, as they did with their first 2 games of the season. So, Dallas just going to have to shake this loss off and move on. They're matching up with New England next Sunday, who is coming off a 15-10 victory to the New Jets. So, Dallas, this loss hurts, especially to a team that we should have beaten. But, you just got to shake it off and move on, because it's a long, long season ahead of us. Moving on. The Indianapolis Colts defeated the Baltimore Ravens in overtime, 22-19. No Anthony Richardson, no problem. Gardner Minshew led the Colts to a gritty and resilient win over the Baltimore Ravens in overtime. And what a game this was, especially late in the game and in that overtime period. And personally speaking, I have Anthony Richardson on my fantasy team, and he was looking like a monster. So hope he can get better and heal up quickly. But regardless, huge win for the Colts, especially defeating the Baltimore Ravens in overtime. That was just a gritty win. I love it. And talking about something crazy that you don't see every day in sports. The Miami Dolphins dominated the Denver Broncos 70-20. The Miami Dolphins exploded with offense today. They really showed what they're capable of. Even without their star wide receiver Jalen Waddle, they shine on offense. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa had 23 for 26, 309 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns. Devon A-Chain had himself a huge game. The rookie running back from Texas A&M had 18 carries for 203 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And he also had 4 receptions for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving wise. If you want to know what kind of numbers this guy put up fantasy wise, it was like in the 50s. This guy was just absurd. Raheem Mostert, running back, also had 82 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and 7 receptions for 60 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. So I think with just those 2 running backs for the Dolphins, they had like 7 touchdowns. It was like, that's crazy. Tyreek Hill had 9 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown. This whole offense just exploded on Denver, who looked lifeless on defense. Offensively speaking, there weren't a lot of bright spots, but Marvin Mims Jr. was bright and Jerry Jeudy had a touchdown. But, Russell Wilson continues to play not so great. I mean, he's putting up similar stats to Patrick Mahomes, but, throw the stats out the window. They haven't won very many games. They didn't look great this game, and that defense is very, very, very spotty. But, overall, that offense of Miami just looks so good that I don't know anyone in the league that could have stopped them defensively right now in the NFL. It was so impressive. And, doing that without their star wide receiver, Jalen Waddle, is just all the more better for them. I'm curious to see how Miami's going to look as the year goes on. They still got a long season to go, and they're doing this without Jalen Ramsey as well. So I'm interested in seeing how they incorporate Jalen Ramsey, see he comes along into the mixture and all that. We got 3 more games to unpack, so I'm going to do that for y'all pretty quickly. The Houston Texans defeated the Jacksonville Jaguars 37-17, and man, what a surprise this was. This was my first time watching the Houston Texans this year, and they didn't disappoint, man. C.J. Stroud had a huge game, 280 passing yards and 2 touchdowns on a win, and a great one against the Jags. The Jags are, they should have been favored. They got former number 1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence on a team. They got another former number 1 overall pick on defense, Trayvon Walker. They got a lot of good talent over there. Etienne, Calvin Ridley, but overall, man, Houston just looked great and confident against the blitz, especially C.J. Stroud. He ended up upsetting Lawrence and the Jags. Overall, just a great win by Houston. Shout out to Tank Dell for that good touchdown over there. And Texans fans got to be pretty happy. Shout out to you, Brian Parker, my boy. Biggest Texans fan I know. Moving on, the LA Chargers defeated the Minnesota Vikings 28-14, and I know my buddy Isaiah's got to be hurting because he's a Vikings fan, and they're being 0-3. Minnesota being 0-3 concerns me a bit. I'm not gonna lie. I wonder how this team's gonna look to bounce back and proceed later in the season, because the Chargers just played a great game, and most notably Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert had huge games. Unfortunately for the Chargers, star wide receiver Mike Williams did have a season-ending injury last night, but LA is now looking towards their 2023 wide receiver draft pick Quentin Johnston out of TCU to step up in the depth chart. He's a 6'4" athletic wide receiver, similar to Mike Williams in play style, but he's really young, and hopefully LA will remain to be competitive and successful as that unit on the offensive end of the football. But overall, the Vikings being 0-3, you gotta really just look yourself in the mirror and see what you want this season to be, from here on out. If you're gonna turn it around, or you're gonna, focus on developing these young guys and, looking towards the draft already, because, you got a pretty good, chance of getting one of those top draft picks, as of right now. Last but not least, man, the Green Bay Packers. They came back and defeated the New Orleans Saints 18-17. Shout out to a Packers fan that I know, Raylan. Yeah, Raylan. Yeah, Raylan's a Packers fan. My boy, his older brother Dion is a Cowboys fan like me. I was just trying to remember that. But Jordan Love, man, he really looked good. He came back from a 17-0 to defeat the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr did not get injured, so. Derek Carr did get injured, so he ended up leaving the game for the Saints. But credit to Jordan Love and the Packers for fighting in this ball game. They had 8+ starters out for them, and while they were down, and despite all those adversities, they ended up coming back, and they came away with the victory. Love looked shaky in the first half. He didn't look very confident, but, when in the fourth quarter, when it mattered and they made that comeback, he looked like a vet. And he might have started the game poorly and receiving boos from the crowd, but, when he was feeling all the love when that final whistle sounded and they were the victors. As for the quarterback situation, New Orleans, the former number 1 overall pick, Jameis Winston, ended up backing up Carr, and, he went 10 for 16 with 101 passing yards. And, he'll look to be the long-term starter at quarterback if Carr continues to be out long-term. But, other than that, a lot of NFL still to go, a lot of college football still to go. But I'm looking forward to the next week for college football for sure. In the meantime, that's going to be it for episode 15. As always, I really appreciate y'all tuning into these videos. Please continue to show support by liking, subscribing, sharing with all your friends. And in the meantime, why don't y'all in the comment section, list below anybody y'all would like to see come on the show. I would definitely love to bring on another guest for this podcast. I feel like it's been a minute, and I'm looking forward to it. So in the meantime, hope everybody has a great week, and I'll see y'all this weekend. Peace.